Welcome back to the Snowpoint Cast. Today we're going to be going over a deck from 2012 called Pesadelo Prism. It was the deck that Igor Costa won the Masters division with in 2012. It's honestly kind of a wacky list, and in testing it kind of seems a little bit inconsistent, but I mean, I guess it got the job done because it got that dub. So let's get right into it. So starting off with 3 Darkrai-EX. This is one of 2 main attackers in the deck. So Darkrai-EX has got 180 HP, pretty beefy, dark type, 2 retreat, weakness to fighting, and a resistance to psychic, which is actually pretty important. So I'm just going to talk about the resistance to psychic for a quick sec. So Darkrai is a really solid attacker in Night Spear, but one of the reasons that it was so good is because of how good Mewtwo EX was as an attacker. And so that psychic resistance, when we talk about Mewtwo, just keep that in mind, because that was a kind of a big deal when it came to Mewtwo Wars, because it added with another card called Eviolite, which we're going to talk about in a little while. So the ability on Darkrai is called Dark Cloak. For each of your Pokemon that have any dark energy in play, they have no retreat cost. So just like a really amazing ability, keeps you super mobile. If you have a Prism Energy on anything, like if you have a Prism Energy on a Terrakion that has 3 retreat, you're kind of just chilling because you can just retreat it for free. So really cool mobility option. And then Night Spear, the attack, is also a great attack. So for a Dark Colorless, it does 90, which is solid. And then you also get to do an additional 30 damage snipe to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon, which is really good as well. Like I said, Mewtwo is a really important part of this meta. So being able to snipe a Mewtwo for 30 doesn't really seem like a massive deal, but it just means that's one less card that you're going to need to KO the Mewtwo if it comes up with your own Mewtwo. So kind of a really solid snipe option, especially when Mewtwo's so good in this format. Speaking of the devil, Mewtwo EX, 170 HP, Psychic type, 2 retreat, and a weakness to Psychic. X-Ball's the attack they're going to be using. So for 2 colorless, it does 20 times the amount of energy attached to this Pokemon and the defending Pokemon. So just a great base attack. You know, for a single attachment, you can hit for 40, and then obviously hitting Mewtwo EX for weakness on itself is really good as well. So you kind of have to be able to counter Mewtwo in its own way. This deck is like kind of a counter deck in a way, because you're playing all 3 of the like types that are kind of important in this meta. Like you play Psychic to hit Psychic, you play Fighting to hit Dark weakness, and then you kind of resist the Mewtwo with the Darkrai EX as well. So you're kind of playing all 3. It's almost like a triangular format in a way, but in this deck you're able to play all 3 types. So Terrakion is the 3rd type that you're able to cover. So obviously, you know, Mewtwo and Darkrai are great attackers, but having an answer to Darkrai is a big deal, because if you put a ton of energy on a Mewtwo and like you hit a Shaymin or something and you can get a big Mewtwo, the problem with that is your opponent can just go promote Mewtwo, DCE, and then all that big investment that you did is kind of gone to waste, which is really bad. You really don't want to have all those cards, especially like Double Colorless and Mewtwo. Just go to the discard. Even for KO Darkrai, it's not really worth it, because the investment that your opponent hits is so much less, and then their card advantage is usually a little bit better. So Terrakion is kind of the answer to that. So Terrakion's got 130 HP, fighting type, 4 retreat. I said 3 before, but 4. He's a fat boy. And Retaliate is the main attack that you're going to be using. However, you can use Land Crush as well. Land Crush is also pretty good. I guess you can also use Side Drive in this deck, but we're not really going to talk about that because Side Drive is pretty bad. You can use it technically though, because you play Prism Energy. So Retaliate, for a fighting and a colorless, it does 30, and then if any of your Pokemon were knocked out by damage from an attack during your opponent's last turn, this attack does 60 more damage. So the numbers there are just perfect. And that's mainly a Darkrai counter. So if your opponent's got a Darkrai, and let's say you had a Mewtwo that had some damage on it and it got knocked out, if you have the energy to retaliate, then you can just, for 2, hit the Darkrai for a knockout, and you actually don't even need to have the energy on the Terrakion because of Shaymin letting you move energy. So you can have this die, go up with an absolutely blank Terrakion, attach a Prism Energy, and then you have a lot of stuff you can do, right? Like if you have a Pokemon on the bench, you can go find a Shaymin, Celebration Wind, and move that energy up to retaliate. If you don't have any energy, you can go Dark Patch onto a Darkrai and then Celebration Wind. So you have a lot of options with this card, and it's great to be able to counter Darkrai's, because Darkrai and Mewtwo are the 2, in my opinion, best attackers in this format. They're really energy efficient attackers that do a lot of damage. So anyway, Retaliate being able to hit the Darkrai for weakness is kind of cool, but you kind of see that, you know, Psychic, Dark, Fighting. It's kind of like fighting grass, or fighting fire, grass, water, but of 3 different types. So they kind of, you're playing all 3 types, so your type coverage in this deck is pretty solid. And then Land Crush is also a pretty good option. So let's say you retaliate a Darkrai and your opponent promotes another Darkrai and they don't have the knockout on you. Then you're just able to attach a second Prism Energy if you can find it, or a Fighting Energy, and then you can hit them for 90, which is another knockout. So that second attack is actually really cool as well, and it's a great option to have if you don't have like a Darkrai on the bench to be able to free retreat after a Retaliate, or if you don't have a Prism on the Terrakion. It's just a great option to have another valid attack, because hitting for 30 with Retaliate is pretty bad. Okay, so getting into some of this tech support Pokemon, you're going to be playing 2 Smeargles. Smeargle's a really good support basic. So it's got 70 HP, Colorless type, single retreat, and a weakness to fighting. Portrait, once during your turn, Smeargle is your active Pokemon. You can look at your opponent's hand and use a supporter you find there as the effect of this Pokepower. So just a great, shuffle draw if they have a Pont, or you get to discard your hand, get some Darks in the discard if they have a Juniper, or an N if you don't really like their hand and you think their hand's too broken. You can kind of just disrupt them, and then also have a chance to use a supporter if you don't have a supporter in your own hand. So kind of a really, really solid power and a great tech just to keep things flowing in honestly any deck in 2012. And Tail Wrap, I guess you could use it, but we're not really going to talk about it because it's really, really bad. Okay, so 2 Shaymin as well. Shaymin is really solid for, like I said, moving that energy around, and it can be used in a multitude of ways. So it's got 70 HP, grass type, single retreat, a resistance to fighting, and a weakness to fire. So Celebration Wind says once during your turn, when you put Shaymin from your bench, from your hand onto your bench, you may move as many energy cards attached to your Pokemon as you like to any of your other Pokemon. So that's good for a couple of things. You know, one of them is like the Terrakion I was saying earlier. It gives you that energy mobility, so you can drop a surprise Terrakion out of nowhere. But also being able to hit for a knockout with Mewtwo is really cool too. Let's say you have a blank Mewtwo and your opponent just X-balled one of your Mewtwo's, you can promote a Mewtwo, and then like if you only have DCE but like you don't really have any other options, if you have a Junk Arm for an Ultra Ball or a Dual Ball to maybe find a Shaymin, and you have an energy on a bench Darkrai or something, you can just move that energy. And while it is a little bit risky because they can just counter KO you back, you have to be able to keep up with the KOs in the Mewtwo war meta. If you're missing a KO, it probably just means that you lose the game at that point. So that's a really solid part of Shaymin, is it just keeps you consistent with those Mewtwo knockouts, and it keeps your Mewtwo's really big. Alternatively, something else cool you can do is if you have a fresh Darkrai, let's say your Darkrai got Night Speared, you can retreat it, Celebration Wind to a fresh Darkrai, and then you're attacking with an attacker that has full health again. So it's kind of a cool thing you can do with Celebration Wind. Honestly, there's a lot of really different uses for it, but it kind of really depends what the board is like. It's really just a really versatile ability, lets you do a lot of stuff. So Energy Bloom you can use as well. So for Grass Colorless, does 30, remove 3 damage counters from each of your Pokemon that has any energy attached to it. There are some situations where this might be good, but the energy investment usually is not worth it, because you usually want to be investing on something else. But I guess there are some situations where it might be a good play. Okay, so getting into some trainer cards, starting off with 4 Junk Arm. Junk Arm is the backbone of a lot of decks in 2012, such a solid card. So discard 2 cards from your hand, search your discard pile for a trainer card, show it to your opponent, and put it into your hand. So kind of tricky wording, especially with the release of items in 2012. So like, for example, Dark Patch and Eviolite are both items, same with Catcher. But then, for example, Plus Power is just a trainer. This one's Japanese, so you can't really see. But it's just a trainer, so kind of a little bit confusing wording, but essentially Junk Arm just grabs anything that's non-supporter, non-stadium trainer card that you can like use in that turn. But great for a couple of things, right? Like obviously that trainer retrieval is really good. Getting back your trainers that are good is really amazing, but also having the option to discard cards is really good in this deck, because you want to find dark energy in your discard so that you can use dark patches fast and effective, and Junk Arm is one of the cards that just helps you discard cards like that. So speaking of Dark Patch, another 4 of in the deck, really, really solid card. This is one of the best items that I think Pokemon's ever printed. It's so powerful. So Dark Patch says attach a basic dark energy from your discard pile to one of your benched dark Pokemon. So Dark Patch just helps you get clutch fast Darkrai's. In this format, you could attack on turn 1, so it is possible to hit a turn 1 Darkrai if you're able to, you know, Junk Arm 2 darks, and then you find 2 dark patches and an attachment, and then a way to switch in the turn, then you can attack with a Darkrai. So kind of a crazy card that lets any deck with Darkrai be super hyper aggressive. Honestly, just a great card. Also cool, like I was saying before, you can put the Dark Patch on a Darkrai, Celebration Wind, and move it to a Mewtwo if you need it on a Mewtwo as well. Kind of a pretty versatile card, lets you do a lot of stuff. Just having more energy on the board in this deck is really, really good. Okay, so let's play 3 Eviolite. So Eviolite there's a couple reasons Eviolite's really good. So one of them is when you put it on a Darkrai, like I was saying, that psychic resistance is really powerful against Mewtwo, and it can be a pretty big deal between the difference between getting, you know, 2-shot and 3-shot. Let's say you're attacking with a Darkrai, right? You have 3 energy. A Mewtwo is going to attack you with a double colorless energy. That's doing 100 damage. Minus 20 resistance is 80. If you minus another 20 with the Eviolite, it does 60, which is, you know, if they do 80, all they have to do is attach and then kill you next turn. But if they do 60, they have to have a pretty big investment to be able to KO you. If you do 60, I think they're able to KO you with 40, yeah. No, actually they can't. Not even with another DCE are they able to KO you. So Eviolite just helps keep your Darkrais alive, which is amazing. It's also good on a Mewtwo. It's honestly great to keep your attackers alive. And really, depending on the situation, it could be good on a Terrakion as well. Like, let's say, for example, Terrakion has a 30 snipe on it from before, and you're using Terrakion against a Darkrai deck. You can promote a Terrakion, retaliate, kill the Darkrai, and if you have an Eviolite on there as well, the Darkrai has to hit triple plus power in a turn to knock you out, and you can threaten Land's Judgment. So against Speed Darkrai, that's a really good option as well, just because, you know, if they hit that single Junk Arm for a plus power, find the plus power, your Terrakion's gone, and you want to get as much value out of your energy as you can. Okay, so moving on. Playing 3 Pokemon Catcher. So Catcher is an amazing card. Switch your opponent's active Pokemon with one of his or her bench Pokemon. So just a great card that lets you Gust of Wind one of your opponent's Pokemon up. And that's especially powerful with Mewtwo and Darkrai because they're such aggressive early attackers, and you can even get some crazy Terrakion plays as well with that. Like if you have a Land Crush on a Darkrai that's building, let's say your opponent has like 2 energy on a Darkrai, they're 1 away from attacking. If you're able to hit like a Catcher Land Crush with a Celebration Wind on your opponent's Darkrai-EX, that can swing a game pretty hard. But honestly, just a great card. You play 3 of it because you play Junk Arm, and that's probably the only reason you don't play 4, but yeah, just a really solid card that's so good. So also playing 2 Ultra Ball, just a great search card that lets you find any Pokemon in your deck, discard 2 cards from your hand, and search your deck for a Pokemon. Also great for getting those Dark Energy in the discard. So you're playing like 6 item cards that are able to discard those Dark Energies, so you can get that quick Dark Patch off. And it also just helps you find Pokemon, right? Like if you need a Smeargle early or a Terrakion to answer, just having the Ultra Ball search any Pokemon is so good. Okay, so I still play 2 plus power. 2 plus power is really solid. I think most decks in 2012 play 2 plus power. I think any lower than that is not amazing, just because it's really important to have in the Mewtwo mirror. You want to be able to Mewtwo, DCE, plus power, KO. You don't always have the option to use Celebration Wind, and if you have the option to, putting that extra energy on there is worse. Like if you have the plus power, it just means that your opponent also has to hit a plus power instead of just hitting Mewtwo DCE. So it's an additional card that they have to hit. So plus power is just great because it protects you, but also makes it so that you can swing for a one-shot if your opponent has a Mewtwo DCE. Still playing 2 Switch. So Switch is just great for Smeargles, but also Dark Patch only attaches to bench Dark Pokemon. So if you're wanting to hit that turn 1 Darkrai, Switch is going to be a important part of that for sure. And also really just depends on what you need to attack with, right? You're playing 3 different types of attackers. So depending on what your opponent promotes, you might want to attack with something else. So having that mobility is really clutch. And you're also going to be playing 2 Random Receiver. I'm going to move this up because I'm running out of room. You're playing 2 Random Receiver. Honestly, all the supporters in this deck just draw you cards, so being able to find supporter cards is pretty good. Random Receiver is flip over card from the top of your deck until you find a supporter card, and then put it in your hand. And you're also playing, so this is my friend Josh Fernando's list, and this is bar none the funniest part of this list. It's actually so funny. So there's 2 Super Scoop Ups, and if you look real close, they're reverse ones. If you know, you know. But yeah, Super Scoop Up, flip a coin if heads, choose one of your Pokemon and all cards attached and put it into your hand. So Super Scoop Up is great for a couple of reasons in this deck. One of them is obviously being able to use Celebration Wind again. Picking up your Shaymins is really good because Celebration Wind is such a good ability. But also healing is really good depending on what you're doing, right? Like if you Celebration Wind all your energy off something that's damaged to something else, and you have a damaged Pokemon on the bench, not really amazing, especially with Pokemon Catcher being such a good card in this format that most decks will play a 3 of or more. It'll be 2 or 3 of actually mostly. But being able to clear that Pokemon off your bench, get that liability out of there is really clutch. Also being able to heal your Mewtwo's, right? If your opponent is shy of a knockout and they hit you for not a knockout, being able to clear that Mewtwo of all energy, and if you're able to kill their Mewtwo as well, it pretty much just means the game because that's so difficult to come back on. But yeah, Super Scoop Up, kind of a cool card. It has a bunch of uses in this deck. And you're also playing one, I gotta move it up even more. One Dual Ball. So Dual Ball, flip 2 coins for each head, search your deck for a basic Pokemon and put it in your hand. So great for finding literally everything in the deck. Just every heads you get to search for a Pokemon because they're all basics. So just a good one of, that and 2 Ultra Ball lets your Pokemon search be pretty consistent with Junk Arm. Okay. So moving on to the supporter line, we're going to be playing 4 Pont. I think Pont is a great card in this deck. Just honestly, Shuffle Draw 6 is so good. The supporter counts here are like kind of weird, to be honest. I think it's like fine, but I don't really understand why you wouldn't play 4 Professor Juniper. I feel like Professor Juniper in a deck that plays Dark. I mean, I guess he won World, so I might just not know what I'm talking about. But he also only plays 3 Professor Juniper, which in a Darkrai deck, you know, every Darkrai deck that existed after this format pretty much just played 4. Probably. You know, the lack of good supporters probably had a part to play in that, but I think that 4 Juniper, just because you want, like, even if you have to discard stuff, Junk Arm can just get your stuff back, right? So you don't really care. Everything that you can play other than supporters, you're able to get back with Junk Arm. Like, if you find a basic Pokemon you want to discard, you can just bench it. So I don't really see a reason for not playing 4 Juniper, but you know, I guess I didn't win World, so. Also playing 2 N. So N is a great card. So each player shuffles their hand into his or her deck and then draws for their amount of remaining prize cards. So early game, that's great. It just lets you shuffle draw 6, which is really solid draw. And then late game, it's a solid disruption option, because if you're playing a Mewtwo War, you're going to be back and forth and you're going to be taking prizes a lot. And if you let your opponent just stand with a hand of like 8 or 9 or 10, if they're taking prizes and drawing a lot, then the chances that they have the counter KO on your Mewtwo when it comes to their turn is so much higher. So being able to disrupt them later in the game, let's say you're down to like last 2 prizes, or like 4 and 2, and you're coming back on them, you're able to hit that, end them to 2, and then hopefully they whiff the counter knockout with a Mewtwo. Like if they whiff DCE plus power or something like that, depending on what the board is, it could mean that you're still in the game. So N is a really, really good disruption option in pretty much every deck in this format, I think. Okay, so getting into the energy lines, we're gonna be playing 7 Dark Energy. So 7 Dark, honestly, also kind of a questionable count. Not an amazing count. I think in a Darkrai deck, playing 8 is like probably the lowest I would ever go, but also again didn't win Worlds. So yeah, I think just finding it early is just so good, because you want to get in the discard to find that turn 1 Darkrai. Turn 1 Darkrai is pretty much the best thing that this deck can do, because it's so aggressive and it's not really threatened by knockout in a single turn like a Mewtwo, unless they invest so much energy into it, which is also just a bad play. Can't really one-shot a Darkrai. So I think playing a little more Dark Energy is better, but also, you know, I'm just going to say didn't win Worlds again for the 5th time in this deck list episode. Okay, so we're playing 2 Prism Energy. So Prism Energy provides colorless energy, but if it's attached to a basic Pokemon, it's every single kind of energy. So you have the option to have it be grass or fighting or psychic for the Mewtwo or dark for the Darkrai. So really anything that you need Prism Energy. And as soon as you have it on the board, you can just Celebration Wind and then move it to whatever else you need. So kind of a cool card, mainly in there for Terrakion, but also lets you, you know, if you need it for a Darkrai, you can attach it to a Darkrai, etc. Okay, and then you're also playing 2 Fighting Energy. Just important for the Terrakion, you know, finding that fighting is really good. And I think if you played, like, you know, instead of the Prism Energy 4 fighting, that would just be bad. So that kind of mix just makes it so your energy is a little more, you have a little more options and you're not kind of stuck with the basic energy type. And they're also playing 3 DCE. So I think 3 DCE is actually fine in this format. It seems kind of bad because Mewtwo Wars are such a big deal, but with Celebration Wind and Dark Patch, you have like a lot of other options to be able to hit the energy that you need for a KO with a Mewtwo. So I think 3 DCE is fine. Anyway, yeah, this has been Pesadelo Prism from 2012, Igor Costa's first place Masters Division list. If you have any questions about the deck, feel free to leave them in the comments below, and I'll do my best to get to them. And if you're not subscribed, feel free to hit that sub button. It really helps me out. And we're also doing a giveaway at 500 subscribers. I think we're at like 400 something right now, so we're close. We're only going to push a couple more, and then we'll do a fresh giveaway. There's lots of stuff in this giveaway. I just popped a bunch. I found this sticker machine. This is kind of a like side rant. You can just dip on the video if you don't care. But there's this sticker machine that I found that had a ton of Pokemon stickers, and it took loonies. So I had a bunch of loonies in my car, and I was literally just pumping it into the machine for probably like 5 minutes, and I was just stacking stickers up. And then I popped maybe like 20 packs of stickers, and a couple of them are in the giveaway. There are some cool Pokemon stickers that I was like, well, these ones are pretty cool, but not as cool. I pulled a Gengar. I definitely kept the Gengar, but there's some that are pretty cool that are also in the giveaway. But yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we will see you next time.